Okay, so last week we started the second section of the emotion regulation skills, that building resilience, decreasing vulnerability to emotion mine. We talked about accumulate positives in the short term and how that acts as like our charging cord for our emotional battery, right? We want to do those things every day throughout the day so that we can keep ourselves at a like over 50% mark. But like for reality, many of us don't function that high because life is hard and it's more challenging now than ever. Financially, the complexities of like living in modern life is just challenging, and so we have to do lots of those intentional positive things to keep our batteries full, even though sometimes like taking care of ourselves feels like the lowest thing on the priority list. The more emotionally fulfilled we are, the more easily we can deal with those hiccups that life will inevitably give us. So today we're talking about the second half of the accumulate positive skill, and this is accumulate positives in the long term. And it's tied in with values and the type of person that we want to be. So there are 7 steps for accumulating positives long term. And we're just going to go through them one by one, kind of throwing out some hypotheticals for each. And the first step is to avoid avoiding. Start now what you need to do to build the life you want. If you're not sure about what to do, follow the steps below. So for neurodivergent people, that biologically sensitive that most of us fall under if we are in the DBT realm, avoiding can be like a way of life. We have learned to dissociate, to like not feel, to not be present. But also many of us have something in that like ADHD and executive functioning issues. And so like the thought of getting from point A to point B, we break down into like 50,000 steps. And because there's so many steps, we get overwhelmed and we don't even start. So for many of us that are in this realm, that's the most important piece of this whole thing, is like today is an opportunity to get up and start to build the life you want. And building the life you want from the life you have is probably going to take a lot of steps and a lot of dedication. If you work on it today, you're closer than you were when you got up. And if you do that every day, eventually you can get to where you want to be. Imperfect consistency is a term I've been using a lot lately. This idea that, we don't need to be perfectionists. We don't need to hit everything 1,000% of the time. But if we just keep going with stuff, because again, us neurodivergents are really good at like starting and stopping, which it's really hard to build momentum then. If we miss a day just to pick back up and keep going without that like long pauses, we'll get a lot further on our goal. So recognizing your relationship to avoidance, looking at what are the steps that I could take today that I have been avoiding because of overwhelm. How good would it feel if I got this thing done and started making progress? All things to think about with avoidance. Okay, step 2 is to identify the values that are important to you. If you're my client, I asked you to do the value sort cards within the first month of us working together. I tell everybody this is one of the most beneficial activities you can do, because it really gives you the guideposts for your life. Values are personal. You do not have to like agree to any pre-subscribed set of values. We've been taught most of our lives that we should. I grew up in a super religious evangelical family. You get this value set. This is the value set you strive to your whole life. It's bullshit. You get to choose what is important to you, and nobody but you get to say it. The value sort card activity is fabulous, and I will go ahead and link that in the description to this. It's a free psychological tool that anybody can access. Highly recommend doing that. But also on pages 253 and following in the DBT Blue Book, there's a list of a couple hundred of maybe it's like a couple dozen with like further ones breaking down the most popular values. So if you don't want to do the sort cards, at least look over those, and that will help you kind of clarify. And what we recommend is coming up with a top 10 list and putting that list in your phone, having a like handwritten copy in your wallet, because it's a really grounding thing. In any moment you can go back to that list and say, is this behavior, is this decision putting me more in alignment with the person I want to be, or getting me further from it? So highly recommend like doing that activity all the way to finish. For accumulating positives long term, coming back to that, step 3 is to identify the values you want to work on now. So this is like kind of your umbrella topic. Could be I want to work on my mental health. Could be I want to work on my physical health. Could be I want to work on the autonomy, the idea of being self-supporting. That could be financially, or it could be behavior-wise. Could be a big picture goal, like I want to get a master's degree in X by such date. But identifying the values that you are working with and tying them into the goals. And that's the next step, values and goals. So if we went back to mental health, my goals might be attend therapy once a week, read a self-improvement book once a quarter, and go for a walk daily where I am unplugged from all social media and just experiencing nature. So those are all various identifiable, clearly defined goals using our observe and describe that we use our mindfulness throughout DBT. Okay, step 5 is choose a goal to work on now. So we've got our list, we've brainstormed just like we do in problem solving, right? We come up with multiple things and then we pick one. We choose our focus point, like our drishti and yoga, the thing we're going to put our energy in it towards. 6 is we take that goal and we break it down into action steps. So if it was, I'm going to go for a walk for my mental health every day, what would I need to do? Maybe I need to find a time in my schedule that I can commit to, set an alarm to remind myself, maybe pack something so that if I'm going on my walk on my way home from work, that I've got my water bottle and my hiking shoes in my car already so that I don't have to like scramble when it's time, all that cope ahead stuff. And then step 7 is take an action. Start doing it. You've written out your plan. We started broad and we got closer and closer and closer. When you look at the worksheet for this page, it is actually in a triangle shape. So we start out broad and we narrow down into that focus point. And then we start taking the action, because just like I started out saying, the life we want to live is on the other side of a million right choices. It's behavior after behavior, day after day, week after week, that helps us create and manifest the things that we desire. It takes hard work. It takes consistency. And having this acts as a blueprint on the day when we don't feel like it. When that willfulness sneaks in and we're like, fuck it, I just want to sit in my negative emotions and like marinate. This is something physical that we can come back to and look at these worksheets and go, yeah, like the bigger picture is I want this more than my emotion, my mood dependent behavior right now tells me I do. And so I'm going to do the behaviors. Okay, guys, see you next week for Build Mastery.